2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5,
Hello,
6,
my
7
name is Bill
o'clock,
Haley, and this is for Haley2024, the Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now, this video is going to be on the charity economy. Now, if you don't understand yet, I am proposing a new constitution for the United States of America, for every state constitution to replace it, and actually it creates a local constitution as well. So it's a full revamp of the American governance. It's a radical change, but it's a very modest government reform. It has a lot less government in it. It goes to a competitive governance, so people who want less government can have it. People who want more government can have that as well. But you get governed by the selected governance that you want. So competitive governance is you select the governing agency that you want to govern you, and your neighbor chooses who they want to be governed by. Everybody has to be governed, but you get one of around 12 different choices. So you select your governing agency, then you vote within your governing agency, within just the membership of the leaders to fine tune it. So like-minded people select the same governing agency, then they elect their leaders. So you have a lot of different, you have libertarians versus conservatives versus liberals. And as long as they're not creating negative externalities, we don't go up to the representative body where people have monopolized regulations, still governed through the CRAs, their selected CRAs, but regulated by the monopoly just to take care of the significant negative externality. But if you're not creating a negative externality, you will only get governed by the membership of your CRA. So let's go through and let's concentrate on the charity economy. You have to understand that this Constitution separates all government power into 30 sectors. No one person is in charge of, let's say, banking versus police versus education versus environmental protection versus transportation, helping the poor is different people. So all this has distinct elected leaderships per sector. So top level elected leaders per sector. No one person is in charge of more than one sector. This whole structure is at every current government, every local government, all 50 state governments, and the federal government. So it's highly important to understand that every current government has a system. Then within each CRA, you have roughly 12 different competitive regulatory agencies. As long as you can get 5% of the population of your locality or of your state or of the federal government to join with you, you can create your own government that only governs you. And unless you are causing a negative externality, it doesn't go up to the monopolized governance. So if you are creating a negative externality, the monopolized governance can put a stop to it. But the bulk of this reform is at the CRA level. Everything else is to support the CRA. The whole Constitution here is to support the CRA. 90% of this Constitution is the CRA. The rating system is to give high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives. And these are also full governmental systems with the executive, legislative, and judicial powers. And they can stop negative externalities by putting rating floors. CRAs still get to regulate how they want to regulate, but they have to be above a certain floor because you're creating negative externalities. You're harming people, and you can't harm people. But everybody has to be harmed a little bit so they can have liberty, because nobody's allowed to have liberty unless you accept somebody else's living next to you, because that's a negative externality to some degree. So it's a significant negative externality, not just a mild one. If I hear my neighbor's music, that's fine. It's a negative externality. But when it becomes 3 o'clock in the morning and it's blaring, then a monopolized government gets to come in and put a stop to it. There's a lot more to go into on that, but I'm going to go to the charity economy. So the Constitution has a really nice preamble, but the other sections are citizenship, general laws. Bylaws are internal government regulations of internal per sector. Any organization has to have internal governance rules how the organization runs. That's what bylaws are. Federal, state, and local. Original authority tells you who has top authority between the CRA sector board or parent sector board or the city, state, and federal. Supermajority takes 70% of the representatives of 70% of the people to do anything monopolize governance, and it has to be verified as a significant negative externality before you can go do it at the monopolized level. Otherwise, you get together with 5% of the people in your society, locality, state, or federal, and you could have your governance within that sector, whether it's education, whether it's roads, whether it's land and water, whether it's police, whatever. Now, there's going to have to be significant cooperation in some of these, and that's what the rating floors are, because significant cooperation is to deal with negative externality in some aspects, and that's to keep the rating floors are to keep it from going up to a monopolized level, because there's a lot of ways to solve significant negative externalities. We don't want a monopolized government to say this is the only way you can do it. So it's a new way of doing that. The parent sector board, it has to be structured. It just tells you how it's structured. Sector board, it tells you its authorities and what that's all about. Again, the competitive regulatory agency is what this whole thing is about. So I'm going 6 minutes into this and I haven't got to the charity economy, but you have to understand where the whole thing is. The rating system is to give high quality information. Everything that used to be paid for by the current government still needs to be paid for. How is it going to be paid for? This is tax and fees and how it's going to be paid for. People are paying for their own services. Government is a service. You have to pay for your services. You get to pick who's going to serve you per sector. The debt, how we deal with the debt. We have a lot of debt out there, but when we sell all the government assets into the free enterprise system or to the CRAs, that's going to give tens of trillions of dollars to pay off the debt. Maybe not all of it, but we got that dealt with here. Pockets of freedom is immigration and foreign policy. States partial acceptance, you can look at that online. The separation of responsibilities and authorities, I did a long video on that. It talks about how one person does not have the knowledge or experience to deal with both education and prisons and making laws regarding courts and everything else. Being a diplomat is just too much for one person to know. That's why we separate it first. Top level, not just, I'm not talking about you can have a Secretary of Education, a Secretary of Defense, and they deal with their own stuff. No, top level elected leaders. So that way voters can also concentrate their vote on that sector. And you don't have to, if you separate it, you can vote for one politician now, and you have to accept all of their policies, whether it's education or warfare or welfare or roads or whatever. Mine, you get to separate and vote more conservative or liberal on one sector or another. Here's the full charity system. You hear on this, you got 3 sectors: charities, the funding mechanism for charities, and the caseworkers. Family law and religion are not technically in the charity system, but because they are the front lines of helping the poor, it needs to be. I put it in here because it's so involved. The charities are going to want to work through families. Many charities are going to want to work through religions, and religion is going to want to go into this. Now, religion can never force their way into anything. It has to be accepted. And but charities are going to be asking for religious help to a large degree, or at least many people want that. Other people don't want that. They don't have to have it. Competitive regulatory agencies means you join the one that you want. The other ones don't have to affect you. Unless you're causing a negative externality, you don't get monopolized. And the charity system does not do that. Now, I'm not going to spend any time on the foreign protection system. It goes all free enterprise to a large degree. Violent crime mitigation system, courts, law enforcement, prisons, all free enterprise. Major accountability for all the stuff, but free enterprise. A lot more accountability than we currently have, by the way. We have representative bodies all over the place, representatives of the people. All these will be heavily involved in the charities. You can look at the food, the healthcare, the banking, insurance. All those are going to be intertwined with charities to a very large degree. Identity is going to be heavily involved. Human resources. I just see involvement everywhere, from education to food. All these things need charities. Um, Environmental, work safety, transportation, media and communication, land and water. Maybe not all those significantly, but some are going to definitely be involved in that. So it's important to understand what a CRA is. You pick the CRA that you want to join, and they will govern only their members. Within the membership, they vote for the leadership of their members, executive, legislative, and judicial. So you get to pick and live under the governance that you want. If it's bad governance, they're not going to be affecting people outside their membership. You can always change your membership. You can leave that CRA and go to a new one. But it's important to understand what we're dealing with here. Okay, this is the screen we're always going to come back to. This needs to be shown so you can understand it. Every time I explain something, it's good to come back and see how there is 12 CRAs that you could just choose from, and how the rating system's over here to give high quality information, and the rating system's going to be able to do rating floors so you cannot create negative externalities over a certain limit. Okay, I already talked about that, and foreign policy or foreign trade, 5% is going to be able to go to a CDA for the federal, and that's going to help world poverty relief. Okay, let's just, this is super important, especially for the charity economy. The charity system has no obligation to assist any specific person. No person has a claim on assistance. Any part of the charity system may decline to provide charity to specific cases or groups of cases. No laws in this regard are allowed at the sector board level or the rating system floor, or by rating floors outside of fraud. This is one of the most important slides and clauses within the Constitution. Nobody has a right to help. Charities always have the right to say, no, I will not help. Without that, this whole system fails. This is a key support, and the system cannot work. The lack of this in the current system is what's the problem with the current welfare system. Government has to set up a set of rules about who can get benefits and who doesn't get benefits. And once those rules are set, then people can put themselves into the position to get the benefits, which means they have to put themselves into a bad position to a large degree, or stay in that bad position, because once they come out of that bad position and help improve their lives, they start getting the benefits. So it entraps them. This is so incredibly important. We don't want somebody to be have an entitled mentality, or get stuck in the system, or take advantage of the system. So we need to be able to say no. It's so incredibly important. Current government welfare, okay, I'm not going to go over that because we're talking about the current system has to stop, and it is a 5-year transition. And everything gets sold to pay down the debt. Anything that government owns is what I'm trying to say. Okay. I'm not going to go over that right now. We're talking about the charity economy. Let's stay here for a second. So the charities help the poor. They organize food. They organize healthcare. They organize housing. They organize what else do you have to do? Clothing, mental health care. They organize education. They organize whatever needs to be organized. Whatever somebody has a significant unmet need. And most of the time that's food, healthcare, housing, and maybe education, and what else is out there. Anything else of a significant need. Sometimes it's cash benefits. Now, they organize that. Now, where do they get their money? From the Charitable Distribution Association. We separate the two because we want laser focus on the Charitable Distribution Associations. I'll call them CDAs. They will collect the money because everybody's mandated to give a certain percentage of their income to the CDAs. I'm not going to get into how that's done. That'll be on the next video. But that's going to give about $1 trillion or 5% of GDP to the government. I mean, not to government, never to government, to the CDAs. 40% for local ones, 40% for the state, 20% for the federal. So it's all over the place. And you give yours to your selected CDA. So every CDA will compete for the business or for the membership of people because they want their money. Then they'll have their money. But altogether, that money's going to be very spread out over thousands upon thousands of organizations upon CDAs. So the charities will go to the CDAs to get funded. And the CDAs will look to see what charities are doing the most good. Who's providing the healthcare the most efficiently and productively. Who's wasting money, who's not wasting money. But not just who's wasting money, but who is doing the most good. Who is getting people out. Well, the caseworkers are supposed to be people. The caseworkers are focused on getting people out of poverty. That's not the charity's job. It's a caseworker's job. Separate discipline there. So the charities have a laser focused on giving money to the charities that are most productive of giving the things that are needed the most. So they're not going to give all the money to the food and leave healthcare undone. They're not going to give all the money to housing, leaving healthcare and food undone. They're going to figure out food needs a certain amount, healthcare needs a certain amount, housing needs a certain amount. And they're going to get a lot. Every company has to provide funds, 5% of their income. So they can do that by services. Now, healthcare services are going to be right up their alley, provide healthcare for the poor. So they're already going to be doing that. But let's say you're a landscaper, they can do landscaping for the poor. I mean, for the hospitals. And that's going to be highly important. Or everybody has a services that hospitals or healthcare professionals need. They can provide some of those services. So an economy is people work and doing what they do and get services from another type of services. And it's not from the same people. So I can do something for person A and person B can give me money because person A is giving services to person B, if I said that right. So an economy is keeping track of people's input of products and worth into the system, and products worth and services into the system, and how much they're getting back. And the charity system is saying for the people who are not able to, for whatever reason, for right now, for falling on hard times or temporarily unable to provide for themselves, they cannot provide enough services to get the services they need to survive. And what can we do to help them? So that's what the charity system is, to have people do as much stuff as they can, but then give them what they need, even if it's more. That's why we do charity. So we could intertwine it with the regular economy, but they also independently a separate, distinct economy. Now we have roughly 12 per locality. That's a lot. 12 per state. That's not too much for per state, but because 40% goes to the state, 40% for the city, and you're gonna have to organize. I mean, you have to organize and intertwine. Have a lot of affiliates, but distinct legal entities, and they have to keep distinct legal books and accounting and everything, and they have to run their sector. So it's so important to understand this. Now, charities, this is who's doing it. So a sector being established means you have the 12 CRAs and the rating system. That's just part of the thing. You have to state it within the Constitution. And the purpose is to fulfill unmet needs and provide those services. And it's important to understand that, let's say somebody wants to provide services into the system, and let's say they don't have any needs, unmet needs. They're fine. They're independent, but I want to provide services because I want to help the poor. They can do that over and above their over and above their mandatory donations, and then ask for help from the charity economy, because a big part of the charity economy is giving the people who are in need services that they can do to help others. So let's say I provide them extra money, and then somebody who's in need does lawn care or maid services, or there's 1,000 things they can do. I'm not saying they only can do manual labor, but whatever their talents are, to do something for me. So there's a lot to that. So that's what an economy can do. That's what a charity economy can organize services going in, services coming back out. Every charity CRA must establish a charity economy, which is in part a system that asks for charitable labor hours from people that are assisted by charities. So you have to understand that by Constitution, if somebody's asking for charities, the charity system can ask them, and if you want to use the word mandate, because subjective determination, they can mandate that they do labor hours into the system, and they're not necessarily getting paid. They're getting charity services. They're earning those charity services to some degree. So if you're just fine independent, you can give 10 hours of service to the charity system, the ones that they really need, whatever you do well that they need, and you can get some services on the side if you want them. Or you can build them up saying, hey, when I'm 75, 80 years old and I need somebody to do some light housework for me, I could build up capital within the charity system. That's all going to be part of this whole system. A charity does not have to be immediate. I do services today and I get that same services back to me the same day. I can do services today, build up a capital, and when I'm 80 years old, somebody can come over and help me at my house to cut my grass because physically I cannot do it anymore because of my age. Okay, so highly important to understand, this screen is to remind you of all the different parts of the economy that might be able to say, I'm willing to pay money for services from the people in need. So the big part of an economy is creating jobs, job opportunities. So you see any thing over here from law enforcement assistant, you can train them up to be a law enforcement officer. You can get trained to be a law enforcement officer, or prison guard or whatever. You can be trained and do a day shift every now and then as your charity contribution and get services outside the system. There's so much you can do, and this video can go on for 10 hours easily and not even touch on half the stuff. So, and then obviously in the healthcare industry, in the banking, if somebody's behind on their payments and they're struggling financially, you can go into the charity economy, and the charity system can make sure those things are covered or at least postponed until you can catch up. But the bank knows by the charity economy telling them, we have you covered. He's doing services. He's actually out there working, and we're going to give you some credit, if you want to call it credit, either in the charity economy or straight up dollars to pay back these loans. And the banks might have a whole system where they're going to say, we can accept the charity credits and then have other people and have that credited to other people, and have a whole system to help transfer credits within the charity economy over to real payments to a bank for a loan or whatever. That way people don't have to foreclose. So every time there's in need of a foreclosure or somebody's late on their payments, unless somebody's working 60-something hours a week already, the charity economy is going to be all immediately put those two people to work. Hey, hopefully you're already trained. We can train you, 2 or 3 week training to work at a nursing home as an assistant. Train you to be something else, do apprenticeships. That's what you're going to be doing that as a teenager, by the way, is learning skills so you can be valuable in these companies, so you can give immediate worth. You don't have to be trained every time you go into something. And the charity economy is going to know what your skill levels are, know what you're certified for, have a checkoff list of these are the things you can give immediate worth to, and they can immediately put you in. Hey, tomorrow show up at 7 a.m. At this one location. They're going to put you to work. It might be landscaping. It might be accounting. Let's say you have an accounting degree, but you're feeling hard times, and you can go do that. Let's say you're a lawyer. I know lawyers who were out of a job. The company had layoffs or whatever the case was, and they had skills. They just didn't have a job. The charity economy obviously would have a lot of opportunities to put lawyers to work very rapidly. Insurance the same way. There's a lot that can be done in insurance with the charity economy. Obviously, food, education, manufacturing. There's so many opportunities for service. And every charity economy would do things their own way. They have their own system. And then they can, let's say a Catholic charity. It doesn't always have to be by religious denomination, but there's going to be obviously some of that where the Jewish denominations will get together, the Catholic denomination, the Protestants, maybe the Muslims will all get together and hey, we're going to join together and we're going to do charities under our Christian principles or our Catholic principles or our Protestant principles or our Muslim or Jewish principles. It's fine. It's all great. Unless they're causing a big negative externality, which I don't foresee right now. But we allow all that to happen. That doesn't always have to be. I'm sure some of it, maybe 6 or 7, will be a denominational religious affiliation. But there's also going to be a lot of other ones that are non-religious affiliation. Just have a good set of philosophy. And let's see what else we have. Okay, the Charity CRA's rating system must set a rating floors on the cooperation, creating a joint charity economy. So the charity economy, and I'm gonna stop here once I finish the screen and then go to the assessor organizations. Well, let me go to another spot first. Okay, let's go to this one real quick. The joint charity economy is going to be important because you want the Catholics might be specialized and really good at doing one thing, and the Protestants might be really good at doing another, and Jewish people might be really good at doing another. And they're going to say, hey, you're really good at that. I'm not going to try to get into that. I'm going to send my people over there, and I'll have your people come over and do what I'm good at. There's going to be some of that. So we want a joint charity economy, and that's going to just be cooperation among the two. I'm going to quickly go through, this is an important one. Charities assist those in need. It needs to have a purpose. In constitutional language, it needs to have a purpose. Even though I said it already, I probably should combine those two. And they need to respect the caseworkers. Important that, but I will get into the caseworkers in a second. Let's go to this one. This one is established. Charitable Distribution Association is established, that sector. That means it's creating roughly 12. All you have to do is have 5%, no more than 20. That's why I say 12, because it has to have at least 6 and no more than 19 CRAs within the sector. Everybody has to contribute their money to their selected CDA per city, for the city, state, and federal. 40, 40, and 20 at the federal. 20%. 40%, 40%. Okay, so that creates that. And how much do they do? 5% of GDP. We have a minimum of 1% of GDP as a head tax. And this is not about distribution, but let's talk about this for a minute. Let's go to, I'll stop here for a second. Let's talk about the CDAs and the charity economies. It's important to know that every charities always want to be funded. And they usually go to society at large, all the citizens, and maybe do an ad campaign on the radio. Maybe they go to the government to get funded, but they're pleading their case before either everybody or government officials or whoever the case may be. I want them to plead their case to the CDAs. The CDAs are going to be where their money's coming from. The the CDAs are going to be steeped in a 50 to 60 hour week job, just looking at what charities are doing the most good. When a CDA is talking to a charity, they're going to know every question to ask. They're going to be able to go through the charities' books. They're going to be able to go down and look at the charities inside out. They're going to see who's working, who they're helping, what their setup is, and they're going to be able to compare it to everybody else. They're going to have a very focused job. The common citizen on the radio, hearing the radio ad saying that there's a need out there for children's cancer or all these really good things, but they make it sound really good. Maybe it is really good. A lot of times it is really good. But do you have the time to go research? It's a rational ignorance issue. People have a rational ignorance of the charities and how good they are because the $20 or $50 or even $100 they're going to donate, is it worth taking 20, 30, 40 hours to go in depth in learning whether that charity is good? Or do you just hear it on the radio and say, okay? And are they giving you all the information? And then the rating system is going to be so incredibly important on this. The rating system is giving high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives. So the rating systems are going to be looking at this charity, and maybe some liberal ones are not going to like what the conservative charities are doing, and the conservative rating agencies are not going to like what the liberal charities are doing. Possible, maybe they will, maybe it'll cross a little bit, but you're going to get a wide variety of perspectives over here, like 12 different perspectives. You join the one that you want, and you can help them out by representation. So it's highly important to know that you have specialized people who are for 40 or 50 hours a week are tuned in to what charities are doing the most good. The CDAs will be looking at the rating systems, reading those, investigating the options for food services, investigating the options for housing services, investigating the options for health services, investigating every option and who's being the most productive and how important that is. That's a skill level that each individual person does not have. They don't have 20 or 30 years invested in 30, 40, 50 hours a week invested in studying this one issue and finding out that. They're just giving out over their $100 because it sounds good. And most of the time it is good. But what if you had specialized people and then they put out their reports and they're forced to debate their issues because they want memberships. So without that good debate, without asking and debating, they're not going to get that membership. So it's highly important to understand what we're talking here. Now let's go over the caseworkers called the AOs. They do the case managing. And these case managers, every person in need getting a net positive charity. So let's take a step back. Let's say you are totally independent. You don't need charity whatsoever. You can still be in the charity economy by providing services, whatever you do. Let's say you're a doctor. Let's say you're a lawyer. They need lawyer services. Let's say that you are a mechanic. You can go in. You can help the poor with their cars. Auto mechanic. Let's say you're a plumber. There's a lot of houses out there from the poor that needs plumbing services. You can be landscaping. You can be whatever. There's a lot of services you can provide to the charity system, and then you can get some services from the people who are in need, and maybe give you some services on that side, or just build up services. So it's highly important to have a lot of people into the system. But if you're getting a net gain of charity, then you have to have an assessor organization, caseworker, and they are in charge of. I say they're in charge of you. They're in charge of managing your case, managing where your help comes from, and asking them for help. Now, if they're not going to be willing to help, or change their lifestyle of not having drugs or at least trying not to be on drugs and trying to work on the problems to get their life better, then you're not going to be in this. Then the AO is going to break ties with them. Let's continue on. Sector. That's not important right now for this. You can read it if you wish. Any citizen requesting help from charities must be assigned to an AO by their CDA. So it's important for some checks and balances. It's not necessarily going to be your AO. You might have to switch to what the CDA asks for because there's some checks and balances. I'm not going to get into why right now. If you think about it enough, it's going to make some sense for some accountability purposes. An AO determines and coordinates assistance needed from charities for the people the AO manages. It's highly important to understand that the AO, this caseworkers have to be able to manage it. These are some of the wisest people among us that are steeped in experience and wisdom, that look at what works and what doesn't work in managing somebody. We don't want this to be monopolized. We do not want rules saying that you have to have an income level below this or above that. We don't want to have monopolized rules. We have 12 different CRAs called AOs to do this. And the charities have to fund some of these. They fund the ones that they think work the best. The charities have to work with them and respect them. It's part of the Constitution. You have to respect the AOs, the caseworkers. We don't want charities necessarily, because it causes negative externalities, just to provide food for somebody in need. We want the caseworker to say, yes, it is good for that person to get the food. Obviously, everybody needs to eat, but if they're not willing to do anything in response, we want that charity to hold back and respect that AO's decision. A little bit of hunger sometimes can change somebody's mind, saying, "Let me get my life straight." A lot of people, especially parents, they need to know when to cut ties with their children if they find out that or start to figure out that you are enabling a dependent mentality for, let's say, 24-year-olds still living at home or whatever the case may be, and you see they're not working, they're not trying, and at some point, a parent knows they need to sever ties, financial ties, and help, and say, no, I will not help you any longer. So it's highly important. I mean, not unless you do this and that. If they see their life is going in the right way, and they have struggles, you're going to try to help them. But if they don't want to help themselves, at some point, you need to know when to stop. That's what individual subjective determination is. And it's so important to know that. And let's go to a couple more of these. I'm just going to read 3 or 4 clauses right through. Then I want to talk a little bit more about it. An AO may use individual subjective determination to set requirements of work, education, lifestyle, among others, on those individuals and families seeking assistance. One of the most important clauses in this full Constitution. The ability to say no. And then this clause here can set requirements of work, education, lifestyle, among others. If the person in need does not agree with what the AO is doing, they can cut ties. They can go ask another AO or a CDA to reassign them, to tell them their issues. You can go to the rating system and say, I think I was being abused. They can go do whatever they want to do. But an AO can cut ties with them if they're not willing to go do some work, apprenticeship program, get some education, stop taking on the lifestyle. I'm not talking about just, that one's going to be controversial, no doubt. And if you don't like it, then that's fine. But what I'm trying to talk about is some really negative, self-destructive things that you're doing, whether it's complete laziness and just not willing to go out and work, not taking drugs, or at least trying to get off the drugs. If you're not willing to try to help yourself, then sometimes the help needs to be pulled back, among others. And I don't know what those others are, but I put among others as a constitutional clause is that the AOs get to use an individual subjective determination and no court can say, unless there's abuse or fraud, no court can say, no, you have to help them. No, this is very strongly the AO's decision. And again, if you don't like what the AO is doing, you can go to another CDA and say, you go to the CDA and say, will you please assign me to another AO? I think I'm being abused. Highly controversial, but I think because, and now, go, if you don't like this, go contribute your money to a CDA that will not say lifestyle. You could do that, but we have to have that as a clause because we don't want anybody in need to say, I demand help. That's the death knell to a system and getting people the help they need. An AO may require the people they are assisting to work in the charity economy. It's kind of the same thing as here, but I like to have clauses that really bring back the point, to really stress, yeah, I really mean this. I don't want any Supreme Court, and I have something similar to the Supreme Court, somebody that gets to decide the definitions of the clauses. I have that within the Constitution. I don't want any Supreme Court, any court to say that, no, you cannot work somebody. No, that's a vital part of this. Now, obviously, an AO or wise AO is not going to work somebody who's already stressed out, working 60, 70 or 80 hours a week and say, you need to put another 20 or 30 in. No. If somebody's working 60 or 70 hours, an AO worth their salt is not going to require any more. They're going to see that they're doing as much as they possibly can. Maybe they'll try to give them some education. Maybe they'll try to give them some counseling. Hey, how can you provide more worth into the job market and give them some job counseling, some skills counseling, do something to get them out of their 80-hour-a-week job and into a more stable job that has higher worth. Maybe that's what a good AO would do. So an AO is there to, what's an AO there to do? It's to get them to be independent, or at least as much independence as needed. Obviously somebody with significant Down syndrome or other significant physical disabilities might not be able to pull their full weight, but the AO is going to work them as much as possible so they can put worth into the system, and obviously they're going to need more help coming back out to give the person with Down syndrome the help they need, the services they need to survive, the food, the shelter, whatever, the health care, and maybe more for them. But what I'm trying to get at is an AO can put them to work to what's best for them. Okay. This slide is just for accountability purposes. You have to understand, I've thought a lot about this, and I'm trying to see who can game the system and how do I stop them from gaming the system. This is for visibility. And by the way, every rating system within the whole charity system is going to be able to analyze everything that's going on. Every charity that takes money from a CDA, they're going to have their books open to a rating system. They can stay private to a large degree, but not from the rating system. A lot of privacy clauses in there saying you're not allowed to reveal it. You get to look at what's going on. You can rate for what's going on, but you cannot reveal what you have. Maybe I have trade secrets or whatever in there. But this is so important. Now, again, this is a general rating system, protects against fraud. Okay, I think I'm going to be done with this video for right now. I'll just go to my bottom video, and oops, totally messed that up. Anyway, I'll stay right here for a second. You see my beautiful family on the screen behind me. The charity system and the charity economy is so incredibly important, and the separation between the charities focusing on providing the most good is so important. The funding mechanism that is a guaranteed funding mechanism coming in, but them focusing on what charities are doing the best good is going to allow them to focus, how do I distribute the money the best within my philosophy. Everybody contributes based off philosophy. And then the assessor organizations, the most wise among us, because they're doing individual subjective determination. How can I best help the person in need, that family in need? Is it more education? Is it apprenticeship? Is it just giving them what they need because they're already doing everything right, but they fell on hard times? Is it dealing with Down syndrome? Is it dealing with somebody else? And how do I deal with them? Now, one AO might say, look, I'm really good with Catholics and I really don't know much about the Muslim faith, so I want to send you over to the Muslim faith AO. That's fine. Or I'm really good with these people with mental health care problems, with mental, let's say, hostility within the mental health and that. And they're really, really good focused on, maybe there's AOs that are really super focused on people who are have mental issues, mental health issues dealing with hostility and maybe a little bit of violence. And they're going to be focused strictly on the best jobs to put those people in. There's going to be people who, they're going to be people, let's say for example, a good scenario is everybody has to contribute to the poor, contribute to their CDA, and homelessness is a big problem. What if we gave people credit for their contribution by letting somebody who's homeless stay in their house? A lot of empty nesters have 2 or 3 bedrooms unused. What if they allow somebody who is homeless to stay in their house? Now, obviously, that comes with a lot of issues. The AO is going to have to make sure they're getting good mental health. They're going out and working those people, so they're out of the house a lot, but they have a good place to stay. Veterans might be able to join together with other veterans. There's a lot involved in that. And if you're going to have somebody stay in somebody else's house, you need a lot of support around that. And we know that. But each CRA can do what they're going to do. Anyway, I'm going to stop this video here and just say how important it is to have a charity system. And the 2 most important things is individual subjective determination and the ability to say no. That's what the current system does not do. The current government welfare system does not do. So, please consider a donation to the Haley2024, the movement. You can find it on Haley2024.org. And until the next video.